first of all, can you talk a little bit about, you know, what it's been like to cover, 3 decades worth of Grizzly football? You must have just a ton of stories to talk about. I mean, that you can probably just things, different situations and
Well,
scenarios that come to mind.
I'm kind of a history buff, so I've written 3 books. The latest one is right there, and I've seen between football and basketball and girls basketball, Lady Griz basketball.
Hmm.
I did them for 8 years before I took over the helm of football and basketball, and I've seen an unprecedented area of success. The university wasn't always what they were. The 2
Hmm.
national championships I did. We went to the title game 7 times. We've never been to the championship game before I started doing games, so I got to
Hmm.
do all those. I've been to numerous NCAA games. We won an NCAA game, which is pretty much unprecedented. And so yeah, it's been an amazing run with an amazing group of athletes and coaches and administrators, and I wasn't ready for it to end. So you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna kind of take you back. When did you what was your first season? I'm guessing about 85, was it?
yeah, I think I started Lady Griz in '85.
When did you can you kind of take me through the process of the beginning of your career, and then I'll kind of go through
Well,
when did
I
you
came to Missoula to run a bowling center.
really?
I was in the bowling business. I'd worked for the spokesman for 10 years in Spokane,
Hmm.
and kind of got sideways there with a union thing, and ended up looking for work. So I went in the bowling business, and was running bowling centers, and a new center opened in Missoula. I tried to move here for years because I'd bowled with people from here in national
Hmm.
tournaments and stuff, and knew I wanted to live here. And so I came here to run a new bowling center in Missoula, and
What was the name of that
West
bowling
Side
center?
Lanes.
Okay.
And the somebody heard my voice, a disc jockey, heard my voice over the PA calling Moonlight Bowling.
Okay.
50 cents for a split on 24. Pick up the 510 for 250. And came up to me on the concourse and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about being on the radio? And we've got an opening for a country music job."
Uh huh.
And I said, "No. I have a job. I'm running this and so on and so forth." He says, "Well, we'd like just to have you come over and be with us part time." And I said, "Well, don't you have to have a license to do that before deregulation?" And he said, "Yeah, but we'll help you get your FCC license so that you can be on the air." So I did that, and then after playing music at night for a while, they needed somebody to read the sports in the afternoon, and so I started reading the sports over the air on the news block. And the next thing I knew, the program director said they needed somebody to call a football game, and he says, "I hear you're a big-time sports guy from Spokane, and we need a play-by-play guy." And I said, "Well, I've never done play-by-play. I don't have any idea what that's about."
What was your reaction when he said that?
Oh, I wasn't interested. I mean,
Hmm.
probably scared the hell out of me, And so he sent me in the control room and said, "I want you to go in there and give me 2 minutes of a football play-by-play." And I said, "Well, okay." And so I grew up across the street from the voice of the Spokane Indians, and the sports editor or the spokesman lived out my back door. Both of those guys
Hmm.
had kids my age, so I was pretty heavily influenced on the sports side, an athlete myself. And
Where did you play?
I went to high school at Gonzaga Prep,
Okay.
and then I went in the military. And then I came out and went to Olympic College in Bremerton.
Okay.
And by then I was old. It was time that young kids were running by me. So I continued to play fast pitch for probably 30 years. But
Fast pitch softball.
fast pitch softball. And let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, then so I went in the control room and I wrote down everybody that I saw out in the office. Wrote down their names.
Hmm.
Jotted them on a piece of paper, put one at tight end, put one at the center, put one over here, did this. And so I just turned on the mic and called play-by-play. Growing up with the Keith Jacksons of the world and the Chick Hearns of the world and the Vin Scullys. And
Chick
people
Hearn,
like
he
that.
started at Bradley University in
Really?
Peoria, Illinois. Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that.
I went to a play-by-play camp. In fact, I have an autographed picture of him in there with me
Uh-huh.
in play-by-play camp at Marymount back in the early 80s. And quite a thrill to have him critique my stuff.
Hmm.
And so I just did the play-by-play, and I walked out, and he came in and listened to it and said, "I told you you could do it. Now go do it. It's tonight." So I went out to Missoula County High School Stadium and called a high school game, and that was that. And And the next summer I was at Dornblaser Field, which is where the Grizzlies used to play football, and they were having tryouts for the PA guy, and I was sitting in the stands, and I thought that kind of sounds like fun. So I went up and said, "Hey, I hear you're having tryouts," and they said, "Yeah, do the second half." So I walked up and did the second half, got the job, and so I did the PA for the 8 years that I was doing Lady Griz, and then in '92, the voice of the Grizzlies quit because he was working at UM, and the job came open. I was at the Missoulian at the time. I was a writer at the Missoulian for 15 years.
So you were a news writer, a play-by-play radio guy. You've kind of done a little bit of everything.
Yeah, journalistically, I've done about everything. Plus the 3 books. You know, I mean, those are a labor of love. And so anyway, I got the job as the play-by-play guy in '93, and we won the national championship in '95, and from there, it's just glory days. Just absolute glory days. I mean, university probably won 80% of the games that I broadcast. I mean, everybody said, "Well, you sound like we're going to win every game," and I said, "Why wouldn't I do that? I mean,
yeah, no kidding.
15-0 one year in football. You got to be kidding me. Yeah, I think we're going to win every game." I mean, I've seen all the miracles. You know, I've been associated with a barrage of fantastic coaches, many of whom moved on. You know, like Larry Kostowiak to Utah, and Stu Morrill at Utah State, Wayne Tinkle to Oregon. I mean, just an amazing group of people that are all friends of mine.
I'll just transition real quick, and then we'll get back to your career. What do you feel like makes a fantastic coach, since you have seen so many of them?
Well, you know, Montana's always going to be kind of a feeder school because it's Division I. Make no mistake about that. And so we play at the highest level, and we play at the highest level with teams. I mean, we played all over the country. We played in the NCAA tournament against everybody. They play the Huskies next year over there in football. And you know, I think it's using Montana kids that are tweeners, for one thing. Nobody can measure the heart of a Montana athlete. He may not have the quicks, he may not have the hops, but he's got the heart. And many of those kids became superstars, and that's why we have 13 in the NFL right now. I think cultivating the Montana talent, for one thing, and just being hands-on, basic coaches. Start with teaching them the basics, and hang around for more than a couple of years. Have the Grizzlies in your heart, and you know, it's a real family situation, and that's what I miss about it the most. The last 2 weeks have been hell. You know, not being it. That was the first game I've missed in 30 years last weekend.
Yeah, how did you, I guess, cope with that, or what?
It was terrible. I didn't do very well. Yeah, I didn't do very well. I went to the first game, and I've never sat in the stands, and I didn't like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what was that like, to sit in the stands and kind of see it from such a different perspective?
Listen to the idiots, you know, the people that scream at the coaches and scream at the players. And I've had them in my headsets, you know, because you get the crowd noise, but they weren't sitting next to me. And yeah, it's hard to keep my mouth shut. I always told everybody if I was ever a fan, I'd be in a fist fight in 5 minutes, you know, because, you know, usually the general fan doesn't know squat, you know, and I don't agree with yelling at athletes, or they're not getting paid, you know, and second guessing the coach and the officials. I guess that's all part of it. You bought a ticket, you're entitled to do that. It's just not my style. I very seldom had anything to say about officials. I don't believe probably 2 out of the 1,200 games that I did were determined by officials. And I remember them really well, so, you know, but I never felt an official was trying to screw us. They're human, you know, and with instant replay, I guess we either find out if they're right or wrong. I'm not a fan of it. I think you take the human element out of it, and I like the human element. But, yeah, I dreaded the day coming up all summer. I'm just dreading. I didn't know whether I wanted to go. I didn't know whether I wanted to watch last weekend or listen to the radio.
What made you decide to finally go?
Oh, people. Yeah, you know, you got to go. People are expecting you to be there. Yeah, you're right. So.
And now I'm going to kind of take you back and transition into go back to 95, or what you call glory years. You know, can you talk a little bit about from 95 on? It sounded like it was quite a ride.
Yeah, and you know what happened before that? I would say that it's interesting because in 1987 we won at Northern Iowa, and I think they were ranked fourth at the time. I was doing the women. I wasn't doing the men at that time. And I remember calling Coach Reed in the Chicago airport. They were flying commercial, no charters in those days. And I caught him in the Chicago airport, ever the reporter. I was on the air playing music, and I just took a shot. It was a huge win. And he picked up the phone, and I just dropped the music and put him on live and talked about, we've never won a game like that. That's huge. And that was kind of the building block to it all. And so those teams from the late 80s right up to 95 built to where you got a guy like Dave Dickinson that said, our goal is not to win the conference title, which has always been the goal. Beat the Cats, have a winning record, win the conference title. Dickie said, no, we're going to win the national championship. We went to semifinals in 94. 95, that was his deal. And he made sure it happened. So,
Well, you've also got to see the evolution. One thing that's kind of cool to me, you got to see the evolution of women's sports
big time.
as well, from probably the mid '80s all the way to today. What was that? What's that like too?
Well, I've done every game that Shannon Kate ever played. I met her when she was in high school, and so I got to do every game that she played in. My last Lady Griz game was her last game. And we won an NCAA game. We won at Wisconsin that year, and to see where women's ball has come. Back in the 80s, I mean, we had 8,800 people to a game against Stanford in the playoffs in 1988. So the development of Lady Griz basketball was right in line with radio starting to do every game, home and away. Hadn't done that before. Fans arriving in droves because they discovered women's basketball. Fans of Lady Griz are not football fans, and they're not men's fans. It's a whole different game. John Wooden said it was the purest of basketball, and it is. After you've done men's games for a while, it's kind of slow, but at the college level, I mean, it's pure hoop, and the athletes just get better all the time. And I'd like nothing better than to go back and do Lady Griz now, because of course I kept close track of it, and they just signed a kid from Malta yesterday, and the Missoulian wrote follows so and so and so and so and so and so from Malta. I'm going, no, Linda Mendel from Malta played in '86. You missed her. You didn't go back far enough. Like I said, I'm kind of a historian, kind of a history buff. There's all the press guides back to 1950 something. So I enjoy being able to turn a phrase, and I enjoy being able to remember who did what and when and stuff. And if I can't remember it, I'll go find it.
Now I'm gonna kind of take you forward here. I mean, I'm looking at all this stuff on the wall. This has got to be a lot of memories for you.
Yeah, every one of those signatures has a story. Maybe I ran into him in an airport, Kenny Lofton. Didn't want to sign, wasn't very happy with me.
He probably used to have a lot of jewelry back in those days. He was a very flashy, flamboyant player.
He had his hat pulled down and sitting over by himself, and one of our players said, "Mick, I think that's Kenny Lofton." I said, "Okay." So he said, "Well, if I sign for you, I got to sign for everybody." I said, "Kenny, nobody knows who you are. Sorry, just slip you this ball." And did the same thing with Phil Jackson at the 3-on-3 tournament here in Polson. His kids were playing. And,
yeah, he's from North Dakota, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, he's actually born in Deer Lodge.
Okay.
And went to North Dakota. And yeah, he was watching his kids play, and I had a basketball. And he's laid out on the lawn chair. Couldn't see that he was 6'11" or whatever, and he wasn't that happy. And I got to know him afterwards, and he signed a bunch of stuff for me afterwards. But he says, I shouldn't sign this for you. And I explained, look, I'm not going to sell it. It's not going to go out on eBay, although this stuff might. I did this collecting to finance my grandkids' college education. That's what this was about. Now they're juniors. My two oldest are juniors. So it's here. Got to do something with it. So yeah, it's neat to be able to have somebody pull a ball out and go, what? George McGovern? I I said, oh, I can tell you a lot of stories about George. I know him very well. His daughter teaches in Stevensville. I had dinner at his house. Here's a Life magazine that he signed. Here's this. Here's the baseball. You know, I mean, everyone is a story. And it's kind of like every picture has a story. Everybody has a story. As a journalist, we all know that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, yeah. So it's been fun.
And how, with knowing all these stories and kind of having sentimental attachment to each item, how, when did you when did you decide to sell this, and then also, how hard is it for you to actually do that?
I don't know how much of the stuff that's in here that I'll actually sell in Polson.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some. I just sent some stuff to Bozeman, and my co-author of my first book is an eBay guy, and I had a Gonzaga collection from their glory years of 2000 to about 2004.
They had quite a run in the late '90s.
Yeah.
That's when they were a Cinderella team. Now they're expected to, they were used to be a 12 or 13.
That's when nobody knew how to say their name, and they still don't pronounce it right. There's no Gon.
I believe
Zog.
Stockton went to John Stockton went to school.
Went to my high school too.
Oh, really?
And his nephew played here, and his daughter, of course, played for the Cats.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we have a strong association with John. Ripon, Stockton, and Sandburg graduated from different high schools in Spokane in the same year.
Mm-hmm.
So got some pretty prominent people out there. Whether I sell, I haven't decided. For one thing, nobody knows what this stuff's worth. I mean, I've got a guy that wanted my Dan Marino football, and he just kept working me and kept working me and kept working me. I said, fine, I'll sell it to you for $100. And he said, oh, I've got $100. And, it's a $300 ball.
Yeah.
That the kind of money that you get out of these things, people don't realize what the worth is. So I probably won't sell a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
The things that I'm basically selling are, well, there's yards of garments out there, Grizzly garments, and some of them are brand new. Some of the hats I hadn't seen in 20 years, and some of them still have the tags on them. Autographed posters, that are framed and preserved and stuff from championship years and things like that. I'll probably maybe sell some team footballs.
Mm-hmm.
I can probably part with team footballs. But as far as going right down the line and saying, okay, I've got a John Wooden basketball to go along with the 50th celebration of the John Wooden Award. He's signed a ton of stuff. I have a personal relationship with him. Can I just put a value on that and sell it? Probably not. But then again, other things. That's Dale Earnhardt Sr., that NASCAR thing, and he signed an 8x10 for me 2 weeks before he died.
Wow.
That particular thing in the box original, never been opened, is worth about $300. I don't have any problem getting rid of that. I'm not a NASCAR guy.
Mm-hmm.
It just happened that I ended up with it, But it's hard to go. God, I just remember when I handed that ball to Joe Graziola. He's on my refrigerator over there, and I've become fairly good friends with Jim Nance because he presents our yearly Sportscaster Award and things like that. And yeah, it's kind of hard to go, well, what do you sell, number one?
Right. And
then to put a value on it to you.
Right.
I found myself putting a value on it so it wouldn't sell.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, like I said, I can take every ball, and I think I can tell you where I got every ball at.
Now, you said initially you were going to, finance your grandkids' college education. Is that still kind of the plan?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, when I was still working for the Grizzlies, that was a pretty lucrative job. And to lose that income has set me back on my haunches. So some of being able to help them with college, I'm probably not able to do that as well as I could when I was working.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for a job, so I'm out there looking for a job.
I was about to say, I read your resignation letter couple maybe issues ago in the Lake County Leader. Was that a difficult decision? Was that a decision that you made or?
No, I made.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent it to the Missoulian to start with, and.
I mean, when did you decide to step down?
I didn't step down.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't renew my contract.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't retire or resign. They decided that Learfield Sports, they have the rights, and they came to me in October, and in 2 meetings, and said, we've decided to go a different direction, and you'll be done after the last basketball game. And I asked them to give me an additional year, and they decided they didn't want to do that. And it's their prerogative. I mean, they went with a 26-year-old kid who might be better than I ever was. I think he's really good, and I've tried to help him. He's been up here, and now I've tried to stay away, because he's going to be compared to me, and he knows he is. And I've been there so long, most people have never heard anybody else's voice. I mean, I've had people say, you're Grizzly Sports for me since I started listening. And so he'll have a road to hoe, but I'm kind of got feelers out for a radio gig locally. I just did an advertising campaign for an ad agency in Missoula last week. And to tell you the truth, I might end up being a Walmart greeter. I don't know. I mean, I'll find a job. So, like I told Andy, the publisher of the Interlake is our former athletic director's brother-in-law, Rick Weaver. I said, I just about called on the news clerk job at the Interlake. It's like a write no bit job and stuff like that. I said, I can do that in my sleep. So, newspaper business is kind of in my veins, but so is radio. It's just that there aren't very many radio jobs.
Definitely. Are you going to be looking maybe outside the region for another radio job? Or
no, take a look at what I get up and look at when I sit at my desk. And I say, no, I chose to move here 11 years ago when I left the Missoulian. And, I'm not going anywhere. It's hog heaven for me. It's a nice acreage. I can have whatever I want here. Not for publication, but if I can pee in my driveway, I'm a happy camper.
okay.
I like the solitude. And
I wish you would have told me that sooner, because I am running the recorder. So.
But anyway, I'm not going anywhere.
All right, and like I said, I'll try to edit that out too. By the way,
sure.
Too. But I'm putting everything I record. I do put on the audio file on the internet, so I'm gonna try to figure out how to get rid of that. So.
To tell you the truth, people just laugh about it. I wouldn't want to see it in print, but
okay,
in a live interview, they probably just.
Okay, gotcha.
You're not the first person I've told that to, so.
I always try to, like I said, respect my sources. So.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you put it on the internet.
Yeah, that's why I let you know there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now I guess, how did you, when you initially heard about the news in October? How have you been coping with that? Because that's 30 years of your life. That's 31 years of your life. That's quite a long time.
Yeah, I was shocked. I really was shocked. I went through all of those things that happen to you when you have a traumatic situation. I was diagnosed with MS the same week. And
jeez.
I can't say that it was easy. And I was bitter, and I was mad. And I kind of got through that fairly quickly, and I was anguished, and
it's just a big part of your life.
Yeah. I don't think it was so unexpected. It was like.
So this was totally not even something that you were even expecting.
No, they asked me, well, if you were to draw up a scenario, how many years do you think you'd do it? And I said, I kind of thought this summer that last year's basketball travel was unbelievably difficult. And I kind of thought, every March, you're just maxed out. Travel is up at 2 o'clock in the morning and home at midnight and 9 days on the road and, living out of a suitcase. And, I mean, the games are fun. And I love the prep. But as you get older, it takes you longer to rebound. And I told him, I kind of like to thinking I'd like to do it for 2 more years. And then I asked him for, kind of being able to make a run around the league one more time, just 1 year. And they said no, the change had been made. And the job hadn't been advertised yet, so I thought maybe we could just slip me in and, you know, make everybody happy. The boosters have been incredibly supportive. Former players have been incredibly supportive.
Now you said maybe even going back and doing some of the Lady Griz stuff was
Yeah,
something that.
that's something I'd love to do, but Learfield's not gonna have me back.
Okay.
You know, they've severed ties, and as I said, I respect their decision. They got the right guy. I'm not mad at anybody. I got through all that. You know, it was just you know, might have been accomplished a little better in the off season than in the middle of football season.
Mm-hmm.
But I took a lot of pride in the fact that I worked just as hard last season as I did any season, and I really didn't say anything detrimental. The things that I've written, didn't throw anybody under the bus. I tried to take the upper shelf on things, and the basis of my writing to the newspapers was to hand the reins to the new guy and let people know that I'm all right with it. You know, I want to give my stamp of approval and say, hey, he's okay. And that was before I heard him. After I heard him, I went, oh boy, he's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm gonna kind of transition back to the yard sale. So when are you having it?
It is the 24th, Saturday the 24th. 9 o'clock in the morning. I would.
It's right here.
Right here.
Okay.
And to tell you the truth, I would, if somebody wants to come out early, I think my phone number's in the ad. I don't have any problem with people coming out in advance of it. I don't have any problem with people contacting me later because they can't get here because it's not all going to sell. It's Grizzly art, which as you see, it's none of this stuff, but it's similar to this stuff. And the posters are a lot of fun because they're signed by legendary players, and they'll bring back a lot of memories.
What are some of the things that you are going to be selling at the yard sale? I know you said you're kind of selling bits and pieces or fragments of it as opposed to the whole thing.
Well,
what are some of the things?
A lot of clothing, all of the hats, a lot of the art, some footballs. Yeah, that's about the extent of it. And giving away a bunch of baseball cards. They're probably all commons, but I'm not going to go through them. So they can have things for the kids. The inside stuff is kind of fun. I mean, who gets a chance to see a press guide from 1995? I mean, people have probably never seen it in 1995. I don't have any use for that stuff. It's taking up space. I can't bring myself to taking it and recycling it. I can't just do that. Started to. It's like I've got 2,000 Sports Illustrateds out there. I'm not giving those away, but I really don't know what to do with them, you know. And so it's just people want to come out and talk Griz sports. They want to talk Lady Griz sports. They want to see stuff, touch stuff. I've already sold $250 worth of stuff from somebody that just said, "Hey, I heard," you know, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. I'm not looking to make a lot of money on it, but I am looking to put food on the shelf.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I'm not giving it away, but there is a lot of free stuff. And then all of the things that you accumulate that aren't Griz stuff. I was a stock car racer, so I have
Really?
a ton of.
Can you talk a little bit
tools.
about that? Because I covered a little bit of like mostly dirt tracks, to be honest with
That's
you.
what I
but,
did was dirt track.
but yeah.
back in my college days.
That was probably what era was that? Because that was kind
70s.
that was kind of back when you had to have you had to almost be 21 to get in the
pit area.
In the pit areas, yeah, because there was a pretty rough crowd back then.
Or somebody had to sign a waiver to get you in there.
Yeah.
And they were jalopies, basically, is what you'd call now jalopies. I raced a lot of 56 Chevrolets and tore a lot of them up, which breaks my heart. You know, ran demo derbies too. Started out doing drag racing. Got a heck of a ride in a fielder back when I was in my 20s that broke 200 that scared me to death. And so I raced at Bremerton Raceway. I raced at Puyallup. I raced at Deer Park in Spokane. I had a service station back in the late 60s too, and so you had to race if you had a service station because the junker sat out front and everybody knew you were a racer. And so I've got all those tools, and I have a soft spot in my heart for tools. I found 8 drills, and they're Black & Decker. I mean, a guy's got to have 8 drills, right? I mean, I don't know why, but so there's a whole diverse collection of things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not a lot of junk. I mean, some of it's brand new.
So some of the stuff that you accumulated when during your stock car racing days.
I got rid of kind of the specialty stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like the flywheels and the clutches and the rear ends. I mean, I probably had 10 rear ends laying around, and when I moved up here, I finally just said, I'm not moving that stuff all the way to Polson. So but I moved it from Spokane to Missoula, and you pack all that stuff around, and I mean, if you looked on the shelves out there, you'd go, well, what were you really interested in? And I said, I've had such a fortunate life that I was interested in everything. I've never been without a team since my Cub Scout days.
Okay.
I've always been a member of a team.
Uh-huh.
This is the first time that I'm not. And not to be surrounded by young people. My good friend is 105 years old. She's at the Village.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to her a couple times a week, and we talk about, she was the registrar at the university, has a building named after her. I don't have a building named after me. And she said, well, the secret to the whole thing is we've always surrounded ourselves with young people, and it's kept me eternally young. They taught me how to shake hands, because it changes every couple of years.
Right.
They taught me the jargon. They taught me what wasn't jargon. What's going on with what? That's not something they say to each other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's been a real education process, and it's the athletes and the fellowship that I miss the most, and I miss it terribly right now. I'm sure I'll get better as time goes on.
Question: Do you still have a lot of athletes that or even former athletes that still kind of keep in touch with you over the years?
Yeah, Facebook's been great for that.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a lot of Facebook friends that are athletes. I just heard from this is what usually happens. I just heard from one of our kickers who's a Canadian, and still trying to play, Brody McKnight, and he needs tickets for Griz Cats. So he called me for tickets. I hadn't heard from him in 5 years. I said, oh, sure. Call me for tickets. How you doing, by the way? He didn't even know I wasn't doing the games. I said, I don't have tickets. So I turned him on to, I'm sure we'll be able to get tickets for him from the university. But yeah, you're closer to basketball players because you travel with them, and they don't have a helmet on. So you really get to know everything about them. The 12 that are on the road with you, I mean, you're very, very close. Football players, if I had them on the coach's show, I recognized who they were and developed relationships and things like that as they grew older.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the football players, you bring a offensive tackle or an offensive guard if he wasn't an All-American. Sometimes I see him on the street and they talk to me and I got to say, who are you? And then I'd say 91, that's who you were. I know all their numbers, but it would have been fun with 2 Polson kids signing for next year. It would have been fun to follow those 2 kids. But I'll be able to follow them from afar. So,
anything else that you would like to add, or anything else that we haven't talked about?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that people need to understand that those were great years, but as you step away, voluntarily or involuntarily, it really doesn't make any difference. There's always a new turn in your life and something else that you're going to fall in love with. I'm working on the Montana State Football Hall of Fame. We just inducted the inaugural class.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing profiles for some of those guys. And so I'm pretty much writing something every day because I love to write. I've got thoughts for another book. I just don't know whether I've got the wherewithal to spend 10 years researching another book. But those are history books. They're not novels or anything. They're basically history. And so, there'll be something down the road that tickles my fancy just as well. For now, I'm worried about advancing my health, learning as much as I can about MS, trying to avoid some of they say I've had it for 30 years and didn't know it.
Wow.
And explains some of the things that I had happen to me over that period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's a challenge to suddenly be in a walker or in a scooter. It's difficult psychologically, but it's a change in your life, and you just figure out how to deal with it. I'm a positive guy, and I continue to be positive. The other thing is that I do a lot of nonprofit work, and I moved here because I felt I could make a difference in a community like Polson and Ronan, and I've tried to do that. I continue to do that.
How long have you been in Polson in this
11
area?
years.
Okay.
Yeah, this is 11 years, and I was the CASA board chair for 7 years and held a benefit golf tournament, celebrity golf tournament every year, and was a CASA volunteer. I've just started working with the Boys and Girls Club. I'm on solid waste management. I've been on the planning board. I've been on the board of adjustment. I'm on the tax appeal board, which doesn't make people a lot of happy when they appear in front of us, but there's so many ways that you can contribute. People saying, yeah, you can lay back and what are you going to do to keep yourself busy?
That doesn't seem like it would be in your personality.
No, I'm not a guy that's not going to have 25 things going, and as you can see it, I've got 4 projects surrounding you right now. So, and I've got a boat in the water. Just brought it home last night. I got a camper trailer out there, and often take off and camp. And there's a benefit to living with my yellow lab. And so I would say I couldn't be happier at this stage of my life, but it still comes with challenges.
Anything else that you would like to add? Or?
No, I don't think so. I think I just encourage people to come out and carouse around.
Okay.
And look at this stuff and have fun with it.
Yeah, definitely. It's like I said, it's quite a collection for sure. So, anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I'm gonna turn this